In March 2024, the world was saddened to hear of the passing of legendary manga creator Akira Toriyama. Akira Toriyama is known for his works creating Dr. Slump, most famously Dragon Ball Z, and all of the sequel series that come with that, as well as his works as character designer for long-running video game series Dragon Quest and Chrono Trigger. Out of respect for the man who's created so many iconic franchises, especially ones like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z that have had such a profound effect in my life, I wanted to go back and have a look at a few of the interviews that he's conducted over his time and have a look at the creative process that he's highlighted as to the influences surrounding Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Upon researching Akira Toriyama after he passed, I found 4 interviews that I found quite interesting. First round, the evolving illustrations. Second round, the unpredictable story. Third round, a fusion with animation. And fourth round, a world where anything can happen. Found on kaizenshu.com. Make sure you go check them out. They have an endless pile of resources surrounding Akira Toriyama and all the works of Dragon Ball and beyond. So make sure you go check them out if you want to dig any deeper. However, before I go through some of the influences that Akira Toriyama had in creating Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, there were several comments that he made throughout several of the interviews that I wanted to touch on, and it was about him as a writer and how he saw himself. So this is about Akira Toriyama, the gag artist. Now, we're all aware that Dragon Ball, and more specifically Dragon Ball Z, are mega famous for being such a high-paced manga series and anime series. But despite all that, Akira Toriyama is a self-confessed gag manga artist. And it was this comment I found here in the second round interview where he quite literally says, "I suppose I am a gag manga artist after all." And I found this comment particularly interesting, especially in reference to Gotenks, where at that point of the series, things had escalated really rapidly to a point where all fights were extreme. Everything was incredibly fast-paced. It wasn't just the World Tournament from the original Dragon Ball series, which was very humble and grounded in its presentation. The stakes were higher than ever, the enemies were crazier than ever, things were super serious, and at this point in time of the series, he thought it was necessary to make one of what would be otherwise one of the strongest characters of them all, and bring them into a more jovial and gag-orientated kind of presentation. Now, that's not to say that it didn't have the extreme powers and fighting abilities that the series demanded at the time, but it also brought the level of humor and lightheartedness that Akira Toriyama, I think, saw in himself as a writer. And this goes beyond just the character designs and the character personalities as well. It goes into the way he designed the world, the things that aren't set in reality, things that are a little bit ridiculous, so that he has the freedom to make things how he wants without the scrutiny of fans being like, well, this wouldn't be like this in real life. It allowed the world to feel unique, and it had a contrast between the seriousness of all the fights and the combat that goes on, and the world that is a little bit ridiculous, so that there is this obvious level of fantasy and unrealism that always kind of makes you smile. Because at the end of the day, if this is not a world that you want to enjoy being a part of and witnessing, it's then hard to buy into the fact that it's about to end. Because honestly, why would you care? If you're not here having fun, why would you care that the fun is actually being threatened to end? And I think ultimately, Toriyama's approach to being a gag artist is very well summed up by these 2 statements from those interviews. He says it was fun drawing Satan. When he first brought it out, he didn't think that Satan would be an important character. He thought it'd be a one-shot. Satan is like that, but thinking up worthless gags is more enjoyable to Toriyama than doing the actual fight scenes. He was later asked by the interviewer if he were to draw another Dragon Ball, who would the protagonist be? Toriyama went on to say it'd be Mr. Satan. He'd be the one I'd want to make the protagonist. How about a gag manga with him and Boo? And I think the frequency of these comments about wanting to make gags or being a gag manga artist really piqued my interest, especially as they became more and more frequent throughout these interviews. I think it's interesting that he enjoys writing the jokes and writing the funny little bits more than he actually likes writing the fights and the big powers and the battles and all the rest. And for a series like Dragon Ball, which is so famous for its epic combat and all those kinds of things, fundamentally the creator really just likes telling jokes. He really likes being lighthearted, and that at his core is how he sees himself. So that's why I wanted to highlight Akira Toriyama, the gag manga artist. Now, this brief video essay is basically a sidetrack on what I initially set out to make. I wanted to have a look at his creative process, the things that influenced him, like Journey of the West, the Jackie Chan films, the Balinese infrastructure after his family went on a holiday, things like that. I wanted to go more in depth with, but then I ended up being sidetracked and fascinated by the fact that he really saw himself as a joke teller, as a gag manga artist, things like that, where the franchise actually evolved into an epic adventure and combat story. But ultimately, when he looks in the mirror as a creative, Akira Toriyama sees himself as a gag manga artist, or at least a joke teller, someone who's very light-hearted and wants to create content that makes people smile. And I think that's important to kind of remember when looking back at a man who created a franchise that is otherwise so serious and intense. So that's Akira Toriyama, the gag manga artist. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's my first kind of attempt at doing a kind of more editorial case study style video. I really wanted to do something in tribute to him. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more like this, let me know. Let me know anything about Akira Toriyama that you've discovered since his passing, or even something that you learned during his life. I'd love to know in the comments down below. As the entire community is, I'm saddened to hear that he's gone. But hey, that's kind of how things work, and I can only hope that he had an easy enough time of it before he passed, and now he's resting in peace. Thank you for watching, everyone. Have a good one. Bye now.